Hello and welcome to a medical rendition of The Untold, the show all about great individuals and their stories, their untold stories. For today's episode, I'm your host, Abdullah Al-Hindiani. I'm joined by my colleague,
الإكثر, and today we have with us Dr. Zainab Alsahhaf, who is a pediatrician and also a member of the child protection team. And I think that's a wonderful thing to be able to do.
Yeah, it is, especially because children are the foundation of future societies, right? Every culture cannot thrive, tomorrow if they don't invest in their children today and even yesterday, right? So the children are the backbone of every thriving community. And to see Dr. Zainab put a lot of emphasis on protecting children, especially in today's climate, who are in the dangers of unforeseen, troubles, right? They are under the protection of phones or under their misguidance of the phones and their computer screens. You don't know what's going on there. You don't know how to deal with it. So I'm very excited to sit down with Dr. Zainab and see how the intricacies of this field works.
Same, especially because nowadays technology has advanced to a level that we can't keep up with it, whereas children are being born into it directly. You hear a lot of tablet kids and kids who are addicted to their screens.
Yeah.
And I feel like she'll be able to shed light on what happens to children behind the scenes with this and the preventative measures parents can take in order for their kids to be better developed.
Yeah, very well said, Lujane. With that in mind, we are going to take a break and we'll come right back after this one. And we are back with Dr. Zainab Alsahhaf. So first, I want to welcome you for joining us on The Untold.
Thank you so much for having me.
Dr. Zainab, you're a pediatrician and also in the child protection services.
Yeah.
But first, I want to talk to you about something that's very common nowadays, especially with social media and technology, which is how nowadays you'll see children as young as 2 years old maybe have a phone or a tablet.
Yes.
So what's your opinion on that?
Unfortunately, this has become our new reality.
It really has.
As you said, nowadays it's almost became impossible to see a child without any form of device or screen, like a phone or a tablet, even as young as 2 years of age. And I just want to say something that, technology and devices are not the enemy.
True.
But it's about how much we use them and how they're used. However, you understand that the first, 3 to 5 years of life is a very critical developmental stage of children. So when you offer, phones or tablets at this very young age, where their brain is rapidly growing and forming neurological connections and bonds, you're disrupting their brain development. You're affecting the memory, you're affecting their language skills, you're affecting their attention span, concentration, and communication skills. So it can have very detrimental side effects if you offer them this form of device at this age. And I understand there's, some mothers, they come to me, they say, what can we do? My kid goes to school, he sees like every other kid has a phone, so they're under a lot of pressure. What I'm telling them is, as a parent, this is the time where you have to make a choice. Do you want to raise your children based on, solid values or principles, or you just teach them to follow everybody else and do what everybody else is doing? So parenting is challenging, but with this generation, it's all about courage, assertiveness, and determination.
Yeah. I do love how you emphasize the idea that it's not the technology's fault, because every time I show someone that, all of your phones, you can have time locks on apps and time locks on the phone itself. They're like, oh, wow, I didn't know that exists.
Yeah.
So the technology is not the problem.
Yes.
The problem is, like I said, parents, whenever you go to tell them about all these, like, oh, ما أقدر عليه, oh, ما بزعله, oh, I can't do anything about it. But, the solution, I think, is awareness to the parents.
Yes. Yes, so this is, as you have mentioned correctly, this is the solution. Banning devices is not an effective solution. Kids these days are very smart. They can always find ways and go around, taking stuff from them or banning them. And banning them can lead, to more anger and more frustration. The solution is, as you have said, to spread awareness and find a balance between, the virtual world and the real world.
No, that makes so much sense. Some of my youngest siblings are maybe around 6 and 7 now.
Yeah.
But from the onset, they always had tablets. And I always thought it was very problematic because my dad, he would give them like 2 hours screen time per day, but then they would just be cute and ask him for more, and he can't, especially my younger sister. She can like always get what she wants from him.
Yeah,
So
it's
she ends up
always the
having
young
more.
one.
Always. And then also, for instance, they would be on like the child version of YouTube or those kind of things. But I think people aren't aware of how much stuff is on the internet, even on those child protective sites.
Yeah, it can be very scary, honestly.
It really can. Like my younger brother was showing me some stuff that he got really into, and it came from a horror video game that adults play, but they made like cartoons of it. So because it's a cartoon, people think it's for kids.
It's okay, yeah.
But there are a lot of cartoons out there that are very weird and very scary.
Definitely.
But kids can't understand the full depth of what's going on. They just see silly things, but then they can't sleep at night.
Yes, absolutely.
So I've been seeing that a lot with my own eyes as well.
Absolutely. See, you said something very important. Sometimes, some kind of, apps or games or shows, they are marketed as child-friendly and safe. But I want parents to understand that not every show or game that is promoted as being safe and child-friendly is necessarily safe. You have to understand this point, because as you have mentioned, sometimes they expose children to harmful and explicit material, can be very dangerous, and it appears like a regular cartoon.
Yeah.
So as a parent, you have to review the content and the games that your child is watching or playing.
Yeah. I do love how this year we saw one of the highest rated shows called Adolescence, which was about this topic specifically, is that parents now, even if your child is in the room, you don't have that safety because there's still the dangers of whatever they're seeing on their phones and on their computers. So in our society, in our times now, the danger is already in your house. It's not like, oh, I got to keep him away from the street so he's safe. So now you got to be, I'm not saying to monitor everything they do, but to put it under, guideship.
Yes, definitely. So yeah, the trick is, and I find it challenging as a parent. As you have said, nowadays, your kids don't have to go out or take a car and go out with your friends for you to worry about them or for them to be exposed to danger. They can be in the safety of their house and locked inside their rooms and can be exposed to a world of harmful material, ranging from, pornographic material, financial scams, online bullying, and the list goes on. So at this age and at this era we are living in, your role as a parent is to be tech savvy. You have to be educated about technology in order to take care of your children.
That's a really great point to make, because I think before you didn't have to be. It was much easier to control what your child viewed or watched, especially if it was just on TV. You could just lock certain channels. They're only going to see the actual child websites. But with the internet now, with social media, even with their own friends, they can be exposed to stuff that their friends show them. So it's very hard to keep that it's very hard for a parent to keep the bubble safe for the kid. Do you have any advice for parents who are struggling with that?
See, my advice is, because you've said a very beautiful phrase, and we cannot lock our kids or keep them in a bubble at this age. And this generation is very different. They're not like us. I'm not saying I'm old, but they're not like us. Before we used to be very obedient. We had this classic parent-child relationship where the parent just dictates everything and the child is completely obedient without any questions. This generation, this classic old-fashioned relationship, it won't work.
Very true.
So to protect your children, you have to build a trusting relationship with your child. You have to have a strong bond with them, have an open conversation with them, talk to them about online safety, privacy settings, let them come back to you whenever they are exposed to danger. Tell him, Mama, if you see anything online that makes you feel confused, or if you're exposed to something harmful or violent, or if you have any questions, just come back to me. me, tell me everything. You are safe. You can tell me everything without judgment. I believe this is the best way to protect your children.
And also today's generation, and we're talking specifically about children, I think I was reading an article that says they are in a very danger for the future because dealing with online communities so much, they develop lack of passion or compassion, right? Especially in social interactions, because you're online, you're much less likely to show emotions to the other person, right? You're going to be insulting them, you're going to be telling them names, whatever, even if it's in a funny gesture, as opposed to be in real life. And so people are saying that that's going to affect how they grow up, and to be people, they're going to be, you know, in simple terms, worse people.
Yeah, you mean their ability to communicate with others. Yeah, I've honestly noticed this because unfortunately, you know, young children and teenagers have become very dependent on social media and device use. So they're inside their bubbles, they're isolated, they're locked up in their rooms and spending endless hours online. So they're not, you know, having this human-to-human interaction. And a child needs direct human-to-human interaction to be able to, you know, emotionally regulate, knows how to express their feelings and emotions effectively, being able to communicate with others. So I have noticed really many children, they're having very poor social skills and communication skills. Even some mothers, they say, is this autism? Is my child becoming autistic because they are using social media a lot? It's not autism per se, because there is, you know, special diagnosis for autism. However, they have some features of impaired social interaction.
Do you think they also maybe have ADHD, or is that also a separate situation?
Well, you know, the formal diagnosis of ADHD needs a proper evaluation by a specialist. But, you know, being dependent on online gaming, you know, with the rapid and constant stimulation can result in hyperactivity in some children. They can express some behavioral issues, aggressive behavior, violent behavior. So yes, definitely, they might present with hyperactivity.
Because some of my brothers have ADHD. And I noticed the youngest one, even though my dad will lock the screen time, when he sits and watches on his tablet, he zones out entirely.
Yeah.
You can't talk to him. Even if you yell or whatever, like, hey, we need you here, we want you here. Yeah. He disappears into an entirely different world and he doesn't even hear you.
Yes.
It's like he just zones right into the tablet, whatever he's watching or playing.
Yes.
And it's impossible to get contact with him. And he gets very upset if you try to break that in that moment.
Definitely, yeah. Especially in younger children. Even, you know, some of them, they become so preoccupied to a point it affects their sleeping pattern, eating patterns, even they avoid, you know, social gatherings, they avoid hanging out with their friends and family gatherings, and, you know, they can stay up all night on the video games, so they wake up at school feeling tired, they having poor attention, difficulty concentrating. So honestly, it has so many negative consequences that can have, you know, long-term impact on children.
Yeah. And speaking of long-term impact, do you think that a lot of parents who are like, okay, have your phone, you know, I want to be done with your noise, you know, coming up with these short-term solutions are going to affect their children long-term?
That's a very good question. You know, I have noticed, and I'm definitely sure about this one, you know, when parents offer their child a phone or a tablet to keep them busy or to keep them quiet, they're not intentionally trying to harm their children.
Of course.
And it might seem harmless at the beginning. However, on the long run, it has like awful impact on the child. Because when you teach your children that whenever you're bored or angry or frustrated, I will just shove a phone in your hand and that's it, to keep you quiet. You're not teaching your child how to effectively deal with his emotions. Let your child be bored. You know, many studies have shown that boredom in children can lead to imagination, creativity, discoveries. So let them be bored. If you, every time they become bored or angry, you give them a phone, they will not know how to effectively express their emotions, and they will lack social and emotional intelligence and effective emotional regulation.
That's a really amazing point. And I want to ask you actually, is there a certain age where it's safe for children to start using screens or social media? Because I feel like, as you said, the very developmental years are not the best time, probably.
Yeah.
So what would you recommend parents to do?
Well, honestly, there's no magic number where suddenly screen time becomes safe, okay? You have, to find the balance. And again, it's not about how much we use it, it's how they're used. But we do have recommendation and guidelines by the American Academy of Pediatrics about the use of screen time in children. And it says that no screen time, absolutely, for children less than 2 years of age. And then between 2 and 5 years of age, screen time is limited to 1 hour only per day maximum of high quality educational content, and it has to be co-viewed by the parent. So I'm sitting with my child, I'm talking to him through it, I'm explaining to him what's he's watching. And as they grow older, now it's less about, strict screen time. It's more about having conversation of your child, setting the rules and boundaries about, screen time, teaching them about the safety and privacy and so on. Now, regarding social media use, this is a different issue. Now we were talking about screen time. Social media access for children as young as, 4 years, and this is unacceptable. And we have seen many countries raise the age of social media use to 16 years of age. Because even, a young adult and a teenager, they are not cognitively and emotionally, they're still not ready to navigate the world of social media. That's why you have to assess the maturity of your child and make sure they are equipped with the knowledge and, safety tips to be able to access social media.
Those are some really amazing points. And
thank you so much.
We're going to go on a short break, but I hope we can discuss them more in detail after the break. And thank you for telling us that, because I think it will help a lot of parents with how to deal with their children. But with that, we're going to go on a short break.
And we are back with Dr. Zainab Alsahhaf. And I believe before the break, we were talking about, the harmful effects of social media on children. And I just want to take a point to mention that one of my favorite solutions to this is actually from China. So in China, if you have a child who's, you're buying a phone for them, you got to connect your civil ID to the phone.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so the phone that's registered to the child has a specific screen time allowed per day. And even for the gaming as well, I believe they have 2 hours per day they can game, which is very reasonable. And it's very good that, there have been some steps taken to attempt, and heal these kind of movements toward the children. Yeah. And I do want to ask you about something very specific, because we've also gone through how children now have very little attention spans.
Yeah.
So people, have lost touch with so many great things throughout the years. One of them is reading. So do you believe that reading stories or reading from a book has been affected as much as reading from social media stuff?
That's honestly a beautiful question. Well, reading, a child and reading an actual story versus a child reading a story off the screen. You might think that they are receiving the same content, but their brains are learning differently.
Really?
Definitely, because, when a child reads or is being read to, the brain is actively working. He will start, imagining the scenes, start imagining, making mental images, imagining the characters, the music, the sounds. And when the mother is reading to her child, you will develop this emotional bond, and there's this, reciprocal conversation between the mother and the child. He will watch her facial expression, the changes in the tone of voice. So this enriching experience is very important for the child's developing brain. It will expand their vocabulary. It will improve their language skills. It will increase their social and emotional intelligence. On the other hand, if the child watches the same story from the screen, you're basically letting the screen do everything. You're not allowing your child's brain to think and, do this problem solving and higher cognitive functions. So the answer to this question is definitely a child reading learns more effectively than just a child watching a story off a screen.
Honestly, I agree with you entirely. I was a big reader growing up, and I think that helped me with my imagination and the ability to do a lot of different things I wouldn't have been able to do if I hadn't read books. Whereas I know a lot of other people will just watch things, but it's more lazy on the brain. I think that's the point that you're saying. It's different. But does it translate to, for instance, playing video games? Because that's very popular nowadays as well. So a lot of people will work through different problems and stuff in games. Are they working their brains, or is it the same as just watching something?
Well, some video games can be beneficial and can be educational. It can work, as you said, with strategic planning, coordination, problem solving, and memory. But as we have mentioned previously, not every video game that is marketed or promoted as being safe and beneficial is actually safe for children. A lot of those video games expose children to unnecessary violence and inappropriate content for children. Plus, you are risking addiction. A lot of children becoming highly dependent and addicted on those video games. So you really have to find a balance between, using video games or enjoying video games where the child doesn't really become dependent on them and it doesn't interfere their day-to-day activities and sleep and eating patterns and school performance.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people are saying that it's actually changing our biology.
Yeah.
Because, there's something called instant gratification.
Yeah.
And that's a symptom of today's usage of online, whatever. You're constantly looking for that, hit of good news. You're constantly looking for the next kind of post, the next kind of picture, whatever.
Because give you that dopamine.
The
dopamine effect.
And for children, they are so used to that whenever they're on something that doesn't produce a lot of dopamine, they immediately lose attention. And you can see that with younger children. If you're talking to them for 5 seconds, they're immediately going to look elsewhere.
Yes.
Yeah, which is, I was reading stuff and said that's actually changing stuff within us, right, as people.
Yeah. And it causing many issues even, I have a lot of relatives that are teachers and friends. They're saying that kids are different, definitely different. You need to, make a lot of effort and like visual attractions to keep them concentrated. They lose focus quickly. Before we were able to, sit for hours, read something, focus on something. Now with the constant stimulation, the attention span of children is becoming very poor, unfortunately.
It really has. Like nowadays, I think even it's affecting us with social media as adults. You're so used to scrolling on your phone. You try to watch a movie, you end up going back to your phone and scrolling.
Yeah.
So if that's an adult, on a kid, it's going to be maybe triple that amount of
definitely,
influence.
absolutely, yes.
And also, I've noticed that especially with video games and stuff, like you said, they get very addicted.
Yeah.
Is there a way for parents to try to break that addiction, or is it kind of a lost cause?
Well, first of all, you have to understand what are the signs of addiction. What are the red flags or the signs that I have to watch for that might indicate that my child is addicted or dependent on video games? So if you see your child locked inside the room, spending endless hours on social media and on video games, staying up all night. If you see that it's affecting his sleep, affecting his diet, if he's becoming increasingly distracted and isolated, not enjoying outdoor activities, not hanging out with friends anymore, not enjoying time with family. You notice that his school performance is deteriorating and his grades are going down. And if he's developing, mood changes and new behavioral issues, that your child is suddenly becoming withdrawn or increasingly violent and aggressive, then these are all signs of addiction that you have to watch for. To prevent that from happening, you have to find the balance. Sit with your child, have the difficult conversation with them, and set clear rules and boundaries about the safe use of video games.
Yeah, and it also can be life-threatening kind of situation because, thankfully, alhamdulillah, we didn't have that in Kuwait. But a few years ago, in one of those PC cafes where, we have them salat games, where it's like all of them computer games, a kid actually died there because he stayed 21 hours playing a video game. Yeah.
Without stopping?
Without stopping.
Wow.
Yeah, the only time they would stop is to order food or whatever. So,
Yeah.
But, when you're playing a game, you're so fixated on the game itself, you forget the signs that you're actually going weak.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of parents now, they don't know that, especially because the previous generations aren't aware of video games as much as the current generation, the future generations. So they don't know the extreme harmful effects of video games.
Yes, definitely. And sometimes can be very dangerous for children with underlying medical conditions, like, for example, kids with epilepsy.
Yeah.
With this, we call it photic stimulation, the rapid lights and sounds. This can induce seizures in children with underlying epilepsy. And some other kids, especially teenagers, they drink, energy drinks or caffeinated drinks and able to stay all night and play the video games. So it's a very complicated issue, honestly.
And what about all the behavioral issues that may not happen now, but eventually over time become real problems and make children very difficult for teachers and parents alike?
Yeah. So we've mentioned some of them earlier, excessive use of video games or screen time can affect the learning process. It can actually program your brain differently. They will suffer from problems with memory. Issues with concentration. Some of them, as you have mentioned before, you said if they watch something, violent or disturbing before sleep. I have some of my patients experiencing what is called night terrors. Night terrors is a form of severe nightmares where the child wakes up suddenly from sleep becoming petrified. A lot of children, they have a disruption in the sleep cycle. Because, it's very important for young children to have sufficient hours of sleep. So excessive use can lead to disruption in the sleep cycle, which will lead, again, to constant fatigue, tiredness, and poor concentration, which will end up in their grades going down. And the list goes on, honestly. The list of complications is endless.
Wow. Well, thank you for telling us about all this, Dr. Zainab. And I want to thank you for joining us today. I feel like we learned a lot, and I hope the parents watching will also learn a lot and learn about trying to find a balance between these things.
Yeah.
But with that, we're going to go on a short break.
That wraps up today's episode of The Untold. Honestly, very informational episode, very educational on a very highly important topic.
She was so well spoken. She made so many amazing points about how children are affected by social media and screen time. And I love that she also emphasized the role of the parents in trying to guide the kids in the right direction.
Yeah, and honestly, I love how the emphasis of this episode was more on the parents, because children, they don't know better, right? They're just pursuing whatever feels fun, games, videos, cartoons. They don't really have the perception of our adult, minds to know this is harmful in the long term. So I'm really glad that Dr. Zainab devoted a lot of this episode's time to, address the parents, talk to them, mention them, tell them what they have to do and what they have not to do.
I agree. And I love that she tried to focus on a trusting relationship, because you can't stop a child. You can't keep them in a bubble, as we said.
Yeah.
But you can help them and make them relate to you and talk to you, so that if anything comes up, they can come to you. And also you can make sure that they find a way to really use social media or screen time in a good way for them, because there are some beneficial ways.
Yeah, they are. You know, very well said, Lujain. But with that in mind, I do hope that the episode was as educational for the viewers as it was for us. With that in mind, that's the end from us on The Untold. Until the next one, goodbye for now.
Goodbye and see you next time.